and hang on. This is going to be a good one.
The fans at Kansas Speedway know how to have a good time. And you are all invited. NASCAR weekend at Kansas Speedway, May 4th and 5th. Get your tickets now at kansasspeedway.com.
It's time for the unofficial 40. Soonerscoop.com's very official recruiting podcast featuring Soonerscoop.com recruiting publisher Josh McCuistion. Get your recruiting fix from the leader in Sooner recruiting. It's the unofficial 40 with your hosts, Soonerscoop.com publishers Carey Murdoch and Josh McCuistion. Eddie Radosevich.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are off. We have fall camp that is going on. Eddie Radosevich and I just back from our first media session with Lincoln Riley and the OU coaching staff. Haven't interviewed any players. That will come up on Saturday at Media Day and Fan Appreciation Day. But just to give you guys a little bit of a taste, went to practice early this morning and saw that Rodney Anderson was not practicing with the receivers, and Alex Dalton was over on the underneath the exercise tent riding an exercise bicycle. So Lincoln Riley gave us an update after practice on what was going on with those two guys.
We've been good in practice. The only thing that would announce is Alex Dalton has a knee injury that'll keep him out for the season. It was a off the field injury that happened before camp, and so obviously tough deal for him. You know, he's had a couple of them, you know, here. But we're gonna get him rehabbed and get him back as soon as we can. But he will miss the season.
Lincoln, during the open media session, we didn't see Rodney Anderson. Did he practice today?
No, he didn't. He had a personal matter to deal with. He'll be back tomorrow.
So there is Lincoln Riley on the two biggest pressing issues from today. I think we saw Rodney Anderson after the practice, just kind of hanging out a little bit. It looked fine, but he did practice yesterday, was in all the practice videos and things like that. But really, as we welcome in Eddie Radosevich, who was going to say something, and Josh McCuistion joins us. We're sad Josh is not in the studio today. Our time with Josh has passed.
It was sad. I couldn't hear the intro again. It was like right back to old school. It was depressing.
Or that Lincoln Riley soundbite that we just played either, I'm sure.
Yeah, I hear bits of the sound bites, but I never get the whole thing. I don't know what that's about.
Sucky equipment, I guess. So we go out to practice today, and we get to see some of the names that Josh has been chasing around for years now. One of those that we didn't get to see, though, was Chris Robison, the quarterback from Mesquite Horn, who is no longer an Oklahoma Sooner. And Josh, I know that you have always had really good relationships with the Mesquite Horn coaching staff. And just to give a little inside scoopage, Josh was actually the first to hear about this last night and called me immediately to tell me what was going on. And I kind of, as a favor, let OU know, hey, we've got wind of this. And let me turn that off. We got wind of this, and I just want to let you know that we're getting ready to report this. And so we put it out there, and they soon followed. I think actually I got a text from someone at OU telling people on the beat expect a news release tonight. So then I knew it was going down. So we had to get it out there. And Josh, it's got to be almost crushing for you, a guy that, and Eddie too. I mean, you guys saw this guy about as much as anybody when he was in high school. I mean, basically 2 years of chasing this guy around. He committed before Baker Mayfield was ever named the starting quarterback at Oklahoma.
That's wild. After getting my heart ripped out with Justin Hansen, I don't think anything can happen because I had enough video. I had enough video to put together a short film of him.
We had quite a career retrospective.
Yeah,
for Justice Hansen.
Absolutely. We even had a in-home sit-down interview.
I'm going to say right now, Justice Hansen will have a more successful college career than Chris Robison.
It's going to be interesting to see where Chris Robison ends up, just for the fact that he's kind of in a very odd situation now. But, Josh, you obviously, Carey and I were there the day that he was offered down at one of OU's
satellite camps. It was on his high school field.
Yeah, down in that was at Mesquite High, I think.
Oh, it was.
And he was over at Horn, but same deal, same town.
Skeeters field.
Same town. It's a very nice field. I like that place. But, Josh, you can probably expand just more on, I guess, really what Oklahoma's losing.
Yeah, it's so funny that his season is going to come to an end, or his career at Oklahoma is going to come to an end, and it kind of fits in the way that I was snake bit in seeing Chris Robison. You guys talked about it. You saw him at the camp when he got offered. I wasn't able to be there that day. Well, then when I did interview him, I saw him at a 7-on-7. Then I saw him his junior year, and he got nicked up a little bit late in the game. He didn't finish that game. Then I saw him his senior year. He got hurt on the final drive before halftime, didn't play the second half. Came back to see him later in his senior year, got hurt on the first drive of the game and didn't play the rest of the game. It was his final game of his high school career. So, it's so fitting for my relationship with Robison that I'm not actually going to get to see him play in an Oklahoma uniform. But, yeah, I mean, this is a really talented guy. I think people kind of, because of how good Oklahoma's quarterback situation seems to be, and that it was so obvious that Chris was going to redshirt, you kind of took it for granted that he was there and kind of forgot about him. But I mean, this is a guy that could make any throw, very good with his feet. I mean, if there was any guy that OU has signed that kind of reminded me of Baker Mayfield, it was Chris Robison. Like, he had a lot of that kind of swagger and that attitude, and that was, and in all the ways that Baker managed to channel that in the right directions, you talked about it last week, Carey, with him at Big 12 Media Days, kind of being kind of subdued and how he'd kind of found a groove for himself. With Chris, you felt like it was always on that ragged edge. Like, this could always become a problem. And I don't think Chris is a bad kid. I don't want people to misunderstand anything about this. This isn't he's a terrible guy, he did some awful thing. He just couldn't get out of his own way. He just kept doing dumb things, and he kind of had one last final straw, and he broke it over earlier this week.
Let me ask you this. Like, when he gets offered by Lincoln Riley, and, I mean, you're looking at it now. Like, what's the kid that just committed? Jason McClellan, was that his name? The running back?
Yeah, the running back from Aledo, yep.
Now, what is it? Where is he from, Josh?
Oh, God. See, I knew as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, no.
I thought it was Aledo.
But it's Aledo?
I think it is Aledo, but I've always heard it as Aledo.
You got to put like a
Aledo.
Texas twang into it too,
and it's not like you can go wrong. You can do Aledo or Aledo, or you can go Aledo or Aledo. I mean, you can screw it up so many ways.
West of Fort Worth. That's what it would be called.
Aledo is I always knew it to be. So anyway, but what I'm saying, back to my point. Like, when you're offering a kid that's a freshman in high school or just finishing a freshman in high school, like, how many kids have turned bad by then? Like, not many. Like, they're still, developing as human beings. Like, when you're offering kids that are finishing their sophomore year in high school, maybe they had a beer or something in their life at that time. Most probably didn't, depending on how they grew up in youth groups and stuff like that, and they were Bible thumpers. And
listen, there's a lot of things that happen between your freshman and sophomore year.
Kids turn.
Speaking from experience.
Eddie wasn't destroying mailboxes, I'm sure, when he was a sophomore.
You don't turn up like that until you until you steal your first 30 rack from Homeland. You don't really live.
Oh, God. Don't admit this stuff. And look, my point is, how dangerous is it? I mean, because if you're a quarterback and you're kind of cocky, like, now all of a sudden you're committed to Oklahoma, you've got a scholarship there, you've got 2 years left in high school, and that's 2 years for your head to completely blow up, to allow yourself to think that you can do whatever the hell you want to do. It's dangerous.
Very dangerous, and especially in today's world when everything that you do is going to be either seen or heard or reported on pretty much by anybody, whether you're in high school or whether you're in college. I mean, it's all kind of intertwined in the same thing, and especially being a high-profile football player and especially a quarterback, I think that you're just looked at differently. And I don't know if that's fair, but that's kind of where we are in today's world.
I don't know. There are going to be some hot takes out there like, oh, this is Lincoln's first, his real first quarterback. Even though they had Kendall, he kind of came in and found a guy, after basically everybody had been identified as because a quarterback, you're always recruiting a year earlier than every other position. But this was really the guy that he got to go out and look at all the quarterbacks in the area. I mean, he worked out Chris Robison that morning at the Skeeters High School, and then we went down to South Grand Prairie, the home that Rhett Bomar built, and he worked out Sean Robinson, who went to TCU, right?
Yep. And I think he's like in the running to won a state championship at DeSoto last year, and I think he's
beat out Trill Hill.
I mean, as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, I think he has a pretty good chance.
So, I mean, but it was really his chance to identify his guy, offer his guy, and get his guy. And he did. So now I'm sure the hot takes are going to be, well, this is just indicative of he's another Cliff Kingsbury. He's another tech guy. Can't handle his quarterbacks.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think they will. I think the easiest take last night was, well, if he just would have hit a girl, he would have got redshirted. That was kind of the consensus.
Don't have that take.
No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying I think the people that are going to make the hot takes, that's probably their first inclination or first response, and that's clearly how we separate the dumbasses from the bitches.
Josh, I mean, you were kind of hinting at this that he was a little shit from the beginning. I mean, was that kind of your take? Like when you first started dealing with him, you could feel like the little shit was in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I like Chris. Like I feel bad saying that, but I think there is something to kind of feeling like, man, this could go one or two ways. This feels like two outcomes are possible.
He's very cocky and
yeah, oh yeah. Chris, I mean, I met Chris. I believe it would have been going into his freshman year, and it was the first satellite camps that OU really did in Dallas, and it was one they did at Euless Trinity years ago. And he and Kellen Deesh and a couple other guys were the first real. Were really the only guys there. It wasn't a great camp. It was just several kind of solid guys. But those two young guys, Kellen and Chris, were really the notables. And I remember meeting him, and like he hadn't played a snap of football for Horn yet. But you could, and he was this goofy, redheaded, like you were like, why do you think you're important? Like what? Like you should have been taught a long time ago that like you're lucky to be here, kind of thing. Because he was like 5'10" and gangly, and you're like,
I can only imagine.
Like I had a feeling of like I'm not sure I'm ever going to talk to you again. And so
one of those kids, like he picks up the football and it's bigger than he is.
Yeah, but then you watch him throw it, and you're like, holy crap, he's
this kid has a rocket.
Yeah. So you're kind of like, well, all right.
I can see why he's cocky.
Even then, you could feel it. You felt like this guy might, like this could go one of two ways. And as I got to know Chris and got a better feel for him, like I felt like maybe that dissipated a little bit. But I think some of it was he got comfortable with me, and it was easier for him to talk. And so, like, I don't think at his core Chris is a bad kid or a shithead. I think he just sometimes does stupid things. Like, I mean, and, God, that doesn't differentiate him from most high school kids or young guys like himself. But it's just one of these things where you can almost forgive when you're, I hate to say running back because then everyone will point to Joe Mixon and think I'm making some parallel. Like, let's say your offensive lineman makes a stupid decision. You know what? You can probably live with that. Your quarterback, whether he wants to be, whether he likes to be, is the ambassador of your program. He is the face, and people are going to look at the things he does as an embodiment of what your program is.
It's why Johnny Manziel was such a fire starter. His quarterbacks aren't supposed to act like that.
If Johnny was a middle linebacker, he'd be Bill Romanowski and still playing in the league. Like, no one would care.
Yeah.
But he's a quarterback, and he's got to have certain qualities. And, I mean, I don't even think that's necessarily unfair. I mean, quarterbacks have to put in more time. They're making more money. I mean, that's NFL. But, yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying. Like, there are bigger responsibilities at that position than there are for any other. So for people to expect things to be treated equally, it's just not. It's not going to be.
It's kind of like how, it explains a lot as to why Tim Tebow had a career in the league. And a lot of other people that were just like him didn't. That were, more run than run pass. I mean, Sam Bradford's a really good example of a guy that just takes care of his business.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
Because he's cut off Eddie Radosevich probably from being too close into his life.
No.
Does his wife like you?
Loves me. I think I can say that.
Do you think? I don't know if I believe you. I don't know if you know, is what I'm saying.
Oh no, I would know.
Eddie, was there ever a conversation with Sam with like, okay, Eddie, these things are kind of okay to talk about, these things you can't talk about, or has
will Sam be mad at us just for talking about this?
No, it's just stuff that we don't usually talk about. I mean,
you're just boys.
Yeah, we don't really. It doesn't really come up.
Yeah, you don't have a lot. I don't have. My best friend and I don't have a lot of deep conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I would know that there's some things that are off limits, than some things that aren't. Like I definitely didn't broadcast that.
Like people who he's banged in the past, we can't talk about that.
I don't think that would need to be talked about. But I definitely didn't broadcast where his wedding was and stuff like that.
Didn't you Instagram it or something?
I put it on Instagram, but I don't think. I mean, not that big of a deal.
Have you gotten in trouble for anything that you've done?
I don't think so.
Since he's been a pro quarterback?
I don't think so. I don't think he probably knows most of the stuff either, though.
And for
he doesn't know about the parties we threw at his house when he wasn't there.
Nah, he was there all the time for those.
You know, for those listening, I feel like we bring up Sam sometimes with Eddie. I have to say, for a guy that has obviously a much more famous friend than Carey or I have, Eddie's really good. Like, it may seem like he's not, but Eddie, like, that doesn't come up. Like, we don't talk about, like, Eddie's real good about not dropping that name when he needs it.
And I'll say this, we used to talk about it, a little bit, we just like on road trips and stuff. But there would legitimately be people, I'm not naming any names, there would legitimately be people in the media that wanted to go to lunch with Eddie just so they could ask him Sam questions.
That's weird.
But I'm saying it's happened. You know it's happened.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, it is what it is.
I mean, look, they want to go to lunch with you too.
Yeah,
because you're a fun guy.
There's just like there's certain things on Twitter, and I even got into it with somebody last night talking about the Vikings and Sam being injury prone, just stuff like that. That like I will fire back at people on Twitter if they say stuff like that.
Yeah, because you're a good friend.
I hope so.
One thing that Eddie does hate that I wanted to talk about on this podcast today, his irrational hatred for fake or parody accounts on Twitter.
Well, it's not that I hate him as much as I hate him. I hate
so
him.
Mad.
I hate him. I do.
You get more mad about parody accounts than anything I've ever seen you get mad about.
Well, it's just because if you're going to do it,
say any
be
F
funny.
words.
Be funny.
Yeah, be creative.
Be creative, and half
Faux
the time
Pelini is a great parody account.
It's that's like the bar,
the gold standard.
Yeah, that is as high as you can get for one. And some people just they waste it. They waste their opportunity. And if you're
because they're not funny, you're right. The funniest that they could be is to come up with a slightly mean take on like Bob Stoops' Pinky, or
I think the one Bob Stoops account that I think is pretty funny is the Tuscany Bob.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty good one. They do a really good job with that one. But there's
Bob
some
Stoops'
that are
statue is okay.
I don't think I've seen. Is it? Yeah, Bob Stoops statue, and then there's one for Switzer statue too, isn't there?
I think that's right. Yeah. Maybe it's Switzer statue that I think is it. No, it's Bob Stoops.
Some
statue.
are just stupid though.
Like there was one guy, and it wasn't even like it was just trying to fool people that he was Lincoln Riley. It wasn't like fake Lincoln Riley. It was like OU coach Riley, like trying to make it similar. And he was following everyone, and then he was asking us if we would follow him back. And Eddie just straight said no because you're a loser.
Yeah. And that
I just
was
ignore him.
true.
Just like why even start? Just ignore him.
I just can't. I can't ignore it. I can't. There's
you
some
more
things
bothered,
that.
Oh,
go ahead.
Are you more bothered by a fake? Because this conversation started between the three of us because Carey found one of you last night.
Oh yeah, someone did a
Are
fake
you more
Eddie.
bothered by someone impersonating you, or just in general they're all stupid?
Just general, they're all stupid. The one that started with me is just weird though, because there's a Facebook account and it's like the same picture and the same guy. So I don't know if Like there really is another
He's a Texas
Edward
Ranger
Radosevich.
fan, and he looks nothing like you, but he followed me, so I think it's a fake account.
It's just weird. And it's just one of those things
But
that
he said his name is Edward Radosevich. Which,
so weird, which there's not, like, I feel like I would know another Radosevich, and especially with my same name. So I don't know. It just, there's something fishy about it. I'm going to figure it out when I do.
See, like, if I was just bored and didn't want, like, I would start an Eddie Radosevich parody account, and I would go follow every single beat writer for the Minnesota Vikings, and anytime they said something not glowing about Sam Bradford, I would attack them.
Well, that comes very rare because they usually don't say anything bad, or they usually.
But if he had a bad game or something,
oh yeah, that's.
I
true.
would just use that account to just abuse sports writers.
Maybe I started it and just don't want anybody to know.
And to fire off at Tim Kawakami all the time.
Well, I'm blocked by him, so I.
But if you have the parody account,
yeah, that's true. That's
he can
true.
see what you're doing.
That's true. He just seems like the biggest bitch ever.
Also, you could attack Tulsa football whenever you wanted. You could, like, if they lost a game, you could just do a big quote tweet, ha 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 ha.
Tulsa, poor folks.
This is so sad
start
because
a rivalry.
I feel really bad because someone is going to now go out and do this based off of my idea because they're not smart enough to do it on their own, which you're going to have a great parody account, but I'm just telling you right now, you're probably not really funny.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you didn't think of this on your... See, I never thought of that until just now. I just made a fantastic... That's how easy it is. So when you screw it up, I agree with Eddie. You're a stupid human being, and you don't deserve to live.
Exactly. And
see how easy it is to make a good parody account?
You really, all you have to do is just be funny and entertain me, and that will get it out usually. But there's some people that try to use their fake account or faux account to be serious, and then that's when it
like
starts.
That's ironic, like that's some kind of hipster ironic thing.
Kind of, yeah, a little bit.
Or the people that start parody accounts just to be assholes, like just to be so mean-spirited that it's not funny to anyone but them.
Yeah, that's true, and I think there is a lot of that in the Twitter sphere these days. But oh well, football's back, so you can't really you can't be too mad about the situation.
I'm glad we could have
hand.
this discussion.
Yeah, you can't
Finally.
be too mad about the situation. It was
By
good
the
to
way,
get back out to the football field today.
Josh, you're going to pay for that comment about Eddie having the most famous friend of all of us. Because I think Jared's going to be pissed at that.
Oh, and I love, like,
But he's an
Kings
NFL
fan.
quarterback. Yeah, I mean, let's
let's
face it. There's nothing bigger than the NFL. I mean,
Like,
it's
now,
not like
if you
Jared is Bono. Like if he were Bono, then yeah he's bigger than Sam Bradford.
Well, and if you wanted to say Kings of Leon, the entity, and Sam Bradford,
is Caleb bigger than Sam? Because I mean, he's married to a Victoria's Secret model. Of course, Jared's wife is lovely too, Martha. Hello. But is like Kate, the lead singer of Kings of Leon versus Sam Bradford? Is that I still think Sam Bradford wins.
I still think Sam.
As long as he's a
Oklahoma
starting quarterback.
I don't know.
Worldwide. Well, worldwide, yeah.
Getting into an area.
Let's say in the U.S.
Yeah,
Let's say
you're
in the
right.
U.S.
I don't know if I want to. I might just go no comment. Plead the fifth.
So you think that there's a chance that Caleb Followell is bigger than Sam Bradford in the U.S.?
I really have no idea.
Internationally, I don't think there's any question. It would be Caleb.
Yeah,
Especially in the UK.
Last I checked, the
Jared's bigger than him in the UK.
Vikings number 8 isn't doing too well in the UK right now. The
jersey sales?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's big in Brighton, but outside of that, it's just not a big deal over there.
Okay, pull out Brighton.
Hey, watch a lot of English soccer, dude.
Yeah, you do. Okay, so
Yeah.
getting back to it, we'll stop screwing around for a little bit. Went out to practice. I think we got to talk about first impressions today. I'll say this. I spent some time watching. First thing I wanted to do is go get some pics of Ruff and McNeil. So I went over, and of course I'm sitting there with the defensive tackles. First thing that really stood out to me, Neville Gallimore's worked really hard in the offseason. He looks fantastic. He looks great. I had talked to someone who had watched practice today, and they told me that Tyrese Lott is the most impressive young guy, new face that they saw on the defensive line.
first thing that pops out to me is just the size.
They're big.
The sheer size that they
Lots
have.
big. James is big.
And the Faumatu guy,
He's a man.
he was a lot bigger than I was thinking.
Yeah. He's
And
a
I
big
put
man.
up a bunch of GIFs of like him. And
McKinney's really big.
see, I didn't see him.
Zacchaeus?
That's one that I didn't see.
Zacchaeus, whatever it is.
I put up video of those guys on the board, so if you want to check them out for
I got
yourselves.
lots of pics of those
Yeah.
guys, so I'll have a photo gallery.
Very
up later.
big though. Like I think that's going to be the kind of your main thing when you see the team in person is just when you see guys like that on the defensive line. When you see the offensive line, of course they're really big. Robert Barnes is huge right now.
He looks great.
Yeah, and he got some praise from Carey Cook saying that he's doing things that he would expect out of juniors and seniors. So I think that free safety spot is really interesting.
And Barnes looks like a safety. Like I wondered when he was in high school, is he going to kind of grow out of being a safety and more like a linebacker? He looks like a safety.
Yeah.
I think I was worried because his dad, Reggie,
Yeah.
is a huge dude.
Yeah.
But Robert, yeah, I mean his body type is of a. I kind of thought he was Chance Sylvie until I saw he was 20 instead of 28. He's built kind of like that. So I'll say this. Receiver wise, got to see plenty of Charleston Rambo and Cedarian Lamb. Boy, I mean, Lamb has a chance. Rambo is really rail thin, like really light. Surprised that both of them were pretty thin.
Yeah.
But man, I don't know physically if those guys are ready yet. Athletically, I have no doubts. I think Rambo or Lamb might have a little bit of an edge, a little bit more muscular. But yeah, I mean, to me, it looks like Rambo needs a year of strength development.
Just looking at Lamb, he looks like one of those guys that I don't think that they're. And Carey, you even said it a little bit right before we started recording this. Is I don't think there's any doubt. Give him some time to get bigger. He's going to be very, very good.
Yeah.
Like you can just tell he walks around with that attitude that, I'm here to catch a lot of passes.
Jeff Bedett was longer than I thought he would be.
Yeah. The more you look at him, he's a guy he's going to play a lot.
Yeah. Like
I don't think there's any doubt.
Geno Lewis, I was surprised by how thick he was, like stout. I was surprised by Bedett's length. Like compared to Marquise Brown, he's quite a bit longer.
Yes. And Marquise Brown is very small.
Yeah, he's small.
I mean, there's just no.
But he
getting
kind of
around it.
has that DD, like he's if he can be stout and small,
Yeah.
he is.
Yeah. He's
Like
he's definitely not paper
low body
thin.
fat. He's got some muscle, but he's just not big.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Not
did
at
get
all.
like 20 pounds since he's been here, 22 pounds.
I think he claims 22, but that's kind of gets into the discussion of do you really believe what they're putting out there as weights and heights and things like that. The guy that physically is probably one of the more impressive guys out of that entire freshman class is Trey Sermon. That guy.
You have a man
huge.
crush on Trey Sermon.
He is humongous.
Eddie has determined that I have a man crush as well.
Yes, I believe you do.
I am fully man crushing on Marcelius Sutton.
Both running backs, areas of need. It will be interesting, when we walk in to practice and you're kind of going over your inventory and seeing like, okay, he's here, and then you get to the running back group and you don't see Rodney Anderson the day after pads. It was only like that was the only thing that you could think of is what the hell happened? Did something happen? But obviously that was taken care of. Personal matter. He's going to be back out like you hit on the top. But the running back position as a whole is interesting just in the fact that you don't know who's going to be that guy. I think that there's a lot of guys in that running. And definitely Rodney Anderson is certainly probably that number one spot right now. But, running behind that offensive line, I think that it's going to make life a lot easier on Jay Boulware and anybody involved in the offense.
I just think that Marcelius Sutton is a guy that is different from everybody else by just a little. I mean, he is more. Abdul Adams and Rodney Anderson. I think Abdul Adams has some hidden athleticism that we haven't seen yet because of the hamstring thing he had a year ago. But he to me still seems like an inside runner. I think Marcelius Sutton looks like the one guy. We got to see Kennedy Brooks a little bit today, and he needs some time, I think, based on what I saw today. It's just 20-minute period. So what do we really know?
Yeah, and there was a lot going on out there. Like
we don't get to see any inside drills or anything like that. And it was day 4 of practice, but they were still just wearing uppers, which I thought was interesting. No full pad. Of course, I don't know how those guys are surviving. I mean, we're out there interviewing people, and I don't think I've ever sweat that much in my entire life. And it stunk. Was that the water treatment plant or something?
I don't know. I love the smell out there.
Really?
Just that locker room.
Pungent?
Yeah, I like that. I'd wear it as cologne if I could.
Oh my God, you couldn't go on a road. You'd have to rent your own car. But I think that I don't even know where I'm going. But yeah, I mean, Marcelius Sutton, to me, gives them a little shiftiness, a little explosion, a little put your foot in the ground, change of direction. That it's really hard to say that they have anybody else like that.
Well, he definitely flashed in the spring game. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Just the way that he was able to do things inside, and especially when you're looking for a guy that can make plays.
He's got 3 years, right, Josh? Does he come in with 3 years?
Yeah, he is a 3-for-3 guy, I believe, if I remember right. Let me look at it. Hell, I can pull it up on our scholarship chart. But yeah, I'm trying to remember. He came out. He was out of North Carolina. Let's see. We've got him listed here. No, he's a 3-for-2 guy. So if he redshirted, he could do it. But
so he was at 2 at Lackawanna or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, I got a man crush. I'll admit it, I do. And I came away this morning kind of how I thought I was going in with the receivers. I mean, Jeff Mead's out there. Looks like Jeff Mead. Nick Basquin's.
Those guys are going to have to do it in games, I think, for anybody to start believing in them. I think that all the talk about, Jeff Mead finally buying in, getting bigger, and he is bigger. I think he has added some weight, but they've reached the point in their career where you don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. You have to go and produce on the field.
Here's the thing. I think 4 practices in, they know if they're going to need Lamb and Rambo.
You think?
I think they know. Like, I think if Michael Jones is really showing, a spark, or Jeff Badette, I think they have an idea.
I just go back to the idea that I wonder if Riley is going to be more open to the idea of playing younger guys than Bob Stoops was. I really, honestly, truly wonder that, because I do think that there was some, I don't know if it's comfort or if it's just believing in a system. I do think that there were opportunities for younger guys to get on the field in recent years, and they kind of took a back seat to older guys.
Well, I'll say this. I one younger guy that's going to have to play probably and is no longer going to redshirt. It's going to be Creed Humphrey.
Yeah, with Alex Dalton's situation,
which I think halfway through the year, they may not be better to start the season, but I think halfway through the year, they'll be better because Creed Humphrey's their backup center than they would have been with Alex Dalton as a starter.
I believe that.
And he might, here's what's ridiculous. The way things stand right now, Drew Samia is not going to start.
Who do you think is going to be
Cody Ford and Ben Powers.
Are they not both playing left?
No, I think Cody Ford and Ben, from what I've heard, Drew Samia is going to be a backup to start the season.
See, that's interesting just because I think that, everybody wants to have this.
I just heard that today, by the way.
Everybody wants to have this too deep, like this guy, and this guy, and it very much sounds like that is all in flux. They're going to put their best 5 guys.
Can you imagine? Is there a team in this conference that Drew Samia could not start for? I mean, this is not a negative against Drew Samia. This is a declaration of how badass this offensive line is.
Yes, very much so. I mean, this is literally one of the better offensive lines. Could you say it's the better offensive line Oklahoma's ever had? Ever?
Could be. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, 2 things. I think with what you're saying, Eddie, if you want to go from a depth standpoint, I think you could maybe make that case at least, prior to, the 85-man limit and that sort of thing. Like, I mean, you go into those, then you're talking about, we had 30 offensive linemen. The numbers are going to look different for an OU team.
Yeah, there were backups in the Switzer era that were getting drafted that didn't even play.
Yeah, so that's a different conversation. But in the 85-man era, I think you could definitely make a case. But it's what you were saying, though, Carey, like you said, Big 12, I bet you can't name 5 teams that Drew Samia couldn't start for.
Yeah, I think it'd be really tough.
It's not just about, he's really good, but he could play right guard. He could play right tackle. I presume he could probably play left guard. Yeah. I mean, he can do a lot of stuff. So if you had one weak spot, you have 60% of your offensive line. If you have a weak spot there, he could fill it.
And you know what's crazy is because of his versatility, he literally could be he could have the most longevity of anybody in the NFL that's on this line right now because he's that versatile.
That's insane to think about. I'm still trying to process him not starting, I guess.
It's all because Ben Powers is a badass that nobody saw coming.
Ben Powers he was extremely good. And
you look at Ben Powers and you're like, oh my God, that guy needs to lose some weight.
I think we literally had this conversation on the podcast last year, on this same day, saying like, he's just another guy. He looks like a coach out there.
Yeah.
And then he
looks like he's headed to be a GA.
And then he
looks like Austin Woods.
Exactly. And then he makes
Austin.
Yeah. Austin, we love you, but then he makes the Sports Illustrated all bowl team for what he did against Auburn. He's just kind of a mean SOB.
Remember who was it? Was it the Move the Sticks guy that was showing he and Orlando Brown just blocking people into the end zone against Auburn. And Auburn had a really good defensive line.
It was Cole Kubelik,
the ESPN
SEC,
guy
network.
Yeah.
And he does. I mean, I go back to when I interviewed Bennett, and I always call him Bennett. I know it's Ben. So,
by the way, I've seen the tools that those ESPN guys, Dusty has showed them to me before. They're amazing. The video tools that they have to research, it's unbelievable. Like you get anything you want, any angle.
App? Or
I'm probably not supposed to be talking about this, but it's
pretty badass.
Like overheads and stuff like it's what coaches use.
Yeah.
Whatever system they get, ESPN gets access to.
A professional huddle, almost.
Yeah. Sorry, Josh Bennett.
No, you're fine. It just like there are certain guys. I mean, you guys know it. You're around recruits all the time too. But when you talk to him, you're like, he fits that coach, or whether he fits OU. He kind of fits the mentality. I remember talking to Powers right after he'd committed, and he's talking, and I was like, just what would you tell me about your style of play? And he's like, I want to go out there and kick ass and kill people. It was something like that. And he was like, can you edit out the ass part? I was like, yeah, I got you, man. But that's a great.
But leave the F and kill people in.
Yeah, like it was the best quote I'd probably heard since when I remember still. It's my best one ever. Was talking to Alan Patrick, and I kind of had the same question, like, how would you describe your style of play? He's like, I put hammers to bones. And I was like,
that was so famous. Yeah, Eddie missed that era. The hammers to bones era, that was the most favorite quote on Sooner Scoop for like 4 years.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Who said it?
And I mean, and that's
Alan Patrick.
Oh. And I remember talking to Powers, and I was like, that's a Bill I mean, like, that fits Bill perfect. I mean, that's the guy he wants, that dude that's going to mix it up and be nasty. But to kind of go with the thought, like, I thought it was Powers or Ford, because I remember last year at this point talking to people, and Carey, I'm sure you guys heard the same stuff, but like, if there was a lineman that they were talking about, like, this could be our next elite offensive lineman, it was Cody Ford. Like, people were talking about him like, this dude's NFL all day.
I swear to God, they have to take 2 pairs of pants and sew them together to make his.
I remember walking around and seeing Phil Lodeholt and those guys, but Cody Ford is, and it could be just recency bias.
He's in that category.
He's in that category as far as just being a big person.
Yeah. He's just a massive human being.
It's impressive how big he is.
When I see people that big, you know what I think? Oh, you're going to die of an enlarged heart early in life, like Andre the Giant. Well, I mean, like Andre the Giant, like died. I mean, early. None of those guys ever live as long as they're supposed to. I mean, I'm being morbid. I don't mean to be.
I usually just think like, God, I'd hate to be that toilet.
Oh my God.
But I mean, like, Phil Oldholt really is like from the land of giants.
He was a humongous person.
Well, he and Sam played together, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, his head is big, his hands are big. I mean, it's just with those kind of guys, they really are like you're just thinking Guinness Book of World Records.
Seeing Phil Lodeholt with a beer in his hand is like it looked like he had like a thimble in his hand.
It's like those little ones you can get.
It's like when Shaq palms a basketball or something. Just ridiculous.
Speaking of gigantic human beings, and here's the thing: you've got Orlando Brown, you've got Bobby Evans. Which, Josh, I don't know if you could speak to this, but to me, Bobby Evans has been. He might be the guy that has been the key to this line being as good as they were. Because when I first saw him here, like, that guy's got a lot of potential. I don't know if he's athletic enough. And Bill Bedenbaugh was talking about, I'm going to roll him left and right tackle. And I was like, nobody plays left and right tackle as a freshman. But, like, I don't really, it's not like I've seen stuff like I have with Orlando Brown, but you don't ever see him screwing up in games, Bobby Evans. It just seems like he has really maybe been an even bigger win on the recruiting trail than we thought he would be.
Yeah, I mean, because people forget, Bobby got overlooked. I mean, he was a 4-star. I think he might have been 250. He was
he had
on the borderline.
that knee injury that took away that year.
Yeah, and so, but at the same time, he had a 5-star, like one of the top 5 guys in the country. Greg Little was his left tackle. So Bobby played right, was kind of second fiddle, even in high school. But, you guys were talking about your man crushes earlier, and I would say if there's one guy that would be my man crush, it's Bobby Evans. Like, I love the way that dude plays. He's super athletic. He gets all over the field. Like, he's ideal for what you're looking for as a tackle. And I agree, like, I think if nothing else, he brings a little variety. You've got Brown, like you said, he's a mammoth. You got Cody Ford, he's a mammoth. Powers is a mauler. And then you've got Eric Wren, who's your center. I mean, like he fits that mold perfectly of the smart guy that's going to do the right things, isn't going to overwhelm you physically or athletically. He just kind of seems to always be where he's supposed to be. And then you have Evans, who more than any of them is an athlete. And I think he just provides a lot of flexibility. I think next year it'll be interesting if he makes that shift to left.
One thing I was going to tell you, I heard something today. Somebody that stopped by camp and were completely blown away by Adrian Ely. Like, completely.
He's a freak. If he will...
And the words Phil Lodeholt were thrown out.
Ooh.
Wow. I know talking to LSU people, LSU never wanted him, and I don't know what they were looking at. Like, don't get me wrong, like, he's raw. He's really raw. But, I mean, you guys have seen him. You talk about a massive human being, and he can move his feet. Like, I mean, there's a lot to like there. I never understood how LSU let him get out of the state.
He's another one of those guys kind of in that Cody Ford, like you are a massive human. I know you're a massive human. I will pray for your heart.
You're going to die early.
I will pray for your toilet.
You're going to make a lot of money.
But Adrian Ely, I remember talking to him to Orlando Brown at Big 12 Media Day, and Orlando was pretty open in the fact that he's kind of taken him under his wing.
Yeah.
Like, he's the next guy at left tackle. He's, he sees a little bit of himself in him. And even Bill Bedenbaugh at the golf tournament talked about him a little bit.
And didn't shy away from it either.
Yeah, he was like, we think this guy could be the next big deal at left tackle at OU. And everybody knows what that means at OU, especially that position.
I got to say, Bill Bedenbaugh, he might be, right now, at least if you're doing a hot chart, man, I mean, I think Mike Leach will always be the number one assistant Bob ever brought to Norman. I don't think anybody else. I think Brent Venables is way up there. I mean,
Kevin Wilson in that top tier, probably.
Yeah, I mean, as an offensive coordinator, yeah.
But
that's what Bill Bedenbaugh, sure. I mean, you take it all in. Like, I think Mark Mangino was fantastic, but I can't forget the fact that he ran off. He always had to re-recruit his line because he ran off so many guys. And Josh, you remember when you were young, they missed on a lot of guys.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they would miss on guys, and then they would run them off. And then they would have like 12 offensive linemen on scholarship. Everybody talks about that Alabama game, but people forget that team, that
like that offensive line should have been a joke.
Yeah.
What they did should never.
Bronson
ever,
Irwin
ever
started at tackle in that game.
At left tackle. Like,
sorry, Bronson. We love you.
It's just amazing. No diss on Bronson. Bronson was a really
here's
good
the thing.
guard.
Like, I remember when Bronson came to camp. Remember that when he came to OU summer camp, he came in and put on one of the best performances I've ever seen. He was fired up every snap. He mauled people left and right. He moved his feet really well. And from that performance, like, look, if he plays that hard, he could be a tackle in college. I always thought he could have been a tackle in college. And then they had to put him in for the Alabama game. I can't even remember all the reasons why now that I think about it. But he was fantastic.
I'm trying to think. Somebody was injured, weren't they, or out? Was that when they were?
Remember they'd started Farniok in that,
right.
The OSU game, and
right.
That was clearly a disaster,
Yeah.
and so they went in a different direction. And I'm trying to remember how that, because that was the first game Deontay Savage started, and I'm trying to remember how that line actually broke down that night. I'm trying to remember all the way through it. That was Gabe's last game, wasn't it?
Yes.
So Gabe was obviously at center. It'd be really boring for us to go through that.
Yeah.
But it was.
But whatever. But I think your point was Bill Bedenbaugh was a miracle worker that night.
Yes.
Incredible. Compare that against that Alabama team to what that offensive line looked like in 01 under Mangino, when it was just a dumpster fire for a whole season.
Yeah, it's bad.
In a nutshell, just look at what Ben Powers has done since he's got to campus. I mean, he's kind of turned him into a machine.
Well, and like Josh said, the reason that Drew Samia is on the bench isn't because he can't play or he's not good enough to start. It's because Bobby Evans is one of the most athletic right tackles that they've ever had in this program.
Yeah.
And it's really bizarre because you don't see athleticism shine with guys on the offense. Like Trent Williams, I was surprised that he's become as good as he is in the NFL, although not really after I watched him just destroy Von Miller when they played A&M one year. I think it was Von Miller. He probably left after his junior year. It was his last year in college, and Trent was like a sophomore or something. Just abused him that day. And I thought, okay, Trent Williams is really good. Like,
yeah,
he just destroyed. And I was like, Von Miller sucks. He's not going to do anything.
Never going to play it down.
But like, I guess I just never really noticed how athletic Trent Williams was, that he's now become one of the best left tackles in football. And like Jamal Brown, I was kind of saying, like, you kind of discounted his athleticism because he couldn't play defensive tackle. You're like, usually if guys can't play on the defensive line, I consider them, lacking in athleticism. It's just a perception thing. But what I'm saying is Bobby Evans, like, literally you see his athleticism when he plays. It's just so unusual. So that's my point.
I couldn't agree more. Like, he was a kid, and there's plenty of guys that I loved, and I thought Alex Dalton was going to be a really good player, and it didn't look like it's going that way. But Bobby Evans is a guy I was a huge fan of in high school, and he's even exceeded what I thought he could do. I think if you were going to make me pick in the NFL which guy's going to have more success, I'd take Bobby over Orlando.
Wow.
I just think he fits it better. He plays in space more naturally than Orlando does.
Well, Bedenbaugh's done a fantastic. I mean, they don't have anything to worry about there. So
absolutely.
Anything else that really stood out to you today, Eddie, being out there?
No, outside. I think
Lincoln got to do interviews today as the head coach after practice for the first time,
and he talked for quite a while. He's not like Bob trying to get out of there in 15 minutes.
I wrote about that yesterday. I mean, he is. If you have a question, he will answer that question.
He's done just about everything. The title of that story, Carey, that you wrote was he needs to put up W's now. That's like the final hurdle to get through. I thought the biggest takeaway, though, and I think a lot of people on the board are going to be interested in just the battle at safety. I think that, it sounds like Will Johnson is kind of leading that free safety.
And it sounds like Khalil Houghton is no longer
Houghton
up for that spot.
Has moved over to Strong and is
Sunderland.
backing up Stephen Parker now.
And I asked Mike Stoops, I said, what more do you need from Will Houghton? and he said, "I need him to make plays."
Yeah.
He was very short,
very to the point on that subject. And I think that, you can look at it two ways. You can look at it as is Houghton just not getting the job done at free safety, or are they that impressed with Robert Barnes and a Chance Sylvie combo at free safety? So I think that's kind of the emerging storyline. I think that that might be number 1A with Will Sunderland's situation, now that I think you got an idea of where they are at running back. I think there's guys at wide receiver, they're just going to have to produce. So I think that's probably my biggest number one question. And I think that you look at also at middle linebacker. I was over there for probably 5 minutes this morning with middle linebackers, but Kenneth Murray and John Michael Terry, one of the two. Kenneth Murray looks great physically.
Yeah, it's just can he figure it out?
Can he play football at this level?
He's a better talent.
I don't think there's any doubt that he can play football
than John Michael Terry, but that doesn't mean that he's gonna. That's such a that position. I kind of love this position because I got in a fight with a lot of people last year about how good Jordan Evans was, because a lot of people just couldn't let go of the Tech game. But he was the only guy that was making tons of plays for that defense last year, and game-changing plays for that defense last year. They're not going to have that this year. I mean, they're going to have a guy that's just trying not to screw up out there.
And you kind of want a headhunter at that position, don't you? I mean, I don't know if just not screwing up will be good for this defense.
You know what? But I thought that's what Dominic Alexander was.
Okay.
He was a guy that just grabbed onto people and hung on for dear life, and he'd get like 18 tackles, but not one of them were not him knocking somebody backwards.
Yeah, that's true. You just want to make some.
But those defenses weren't great, so I mean,
yeah, I don't know what that's saying. They need to be better up front, and I think that it is kind of comforting looking at what they have at defensive tackle and defensive end right now. It's just going to be about making plays, and I think that will even. I think that will even help the secondary if they can get more pressure on the quarterback. It all goes hand in hand. It's just going to be kind of a month long of build-up before they actually go out and prove it or play.
All right, Josh, let's switch to some recruiting. Lincoln Riley, as we've talked about, he loves the other parts of this job. He loves the recruiting. I don't know, loves the media is the right way, but he uses the media as a tool, which Bob Stoops never really cared for any of it. Lincoln Riley seems to embrace it. What do you think, and have you kind of got any indication of, will kids be coming in a lot during this camp, or in terms of recruits, or do you think that that's something that they'll kind of try and focus just on camp and not worry so much about having a lot of visitors? Have you gotten any indication?
I think it's going to be more of the latter. Don't get me wrong. Like if a elite, Bobby Brown wants to come in, or Ronnie Perkins, or some other elite guy that they really, are just never going to say no to a visit.
Or if Jalen Redmond wants to come down for practice,
commits.
Ron Tatum and stuff.
Yeah, commits are going to be hanging around like that. That's no big deal. But as far as a guy that they're going to say, well, we want you here anytime you can come, they're not going to turn those guys away. But I also don't think they're going to be setting up, we want, our top 3 running backs all through here this fall. Like, I don't think they look at it that way. I think they want to focus. I think that's a big part of what the barbecue was, is a chance to kind of have that last summer thing with them. And then we're going to focus on football. You focus on your, junior, senior, sophomore year, whatever it may be. And then, we'll see you during the season, come down for a game and come see us, that kind of thing. But again, I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression that OU's closing the door on recruiting. That's not the way that's going to go. I just don't think that it's like we talked about, with any coach, what they love to do is coach. So if they can have that time to just be around the players and go through all that's what they want to do. And at the same time, they'll keep talking to kids and recruiting. And if somebody big time wants to show up, then they're not going to stop them.
It's always interesting because whenever we would go to practices, Bob Stoops seemed to really embrace recruits coming in while they were practicing. And, I mean, Lincoln Riley is making his own moves and how he does things. I wonder if he's not the type of guy that's like, look, if we can get Josh Proctor in here, maybe we don't want him seeing Mike Stoops yell at people in practice. Like,
lose it on somebody.
Because, I mean, it was obvious he got after Stephen Parker today.
that might have been the best part of post-practice interviews today. It was like,
you and I were over talking to Mike, just trying to get him to loosen up a little bit.
He was very high-strung today. They must have...
he was.
It must have been a growing practice.
I asked him a question about... because somebody told me, like, the defense looks so much better so far in practice than they did a year ago. And so I kind of posed that question to him, and he was like, no, I'm not I'm not making those comparisons. And I was like, and I just said something like, you can't give out any compliments 4 days into camp, huh? And he just kind of laughed and chuckled. And then Stephen Parker comes up from behind him and starts apologizing. Like, we're in the middle of our interview, and you could tell, like, he was really upset. Like,
they had
something had happened.
Yeah, they had some kind of... I want to say scuffle, but it wasn't a scuffle.
Sure,
obviously.
I'm sure they yelled at each other.
It was a nice little disagreement, I guess.
But basically, Stephen Parker said that was all my fault. I'll do better next time. Like, he was taking it. Like, it was kind of cool to see. I mean, that's your leader on defense, one of your leaders.
Yeah.
And he was coming up to basically, make amends.
That's one of the first things that and it might just be because it's a talking point for Riley, but there was no doubt that, there was so much focus put on they don't have leaders when they started 1-2 last year. There's no doubt. You can't use that excuse this year. That's basically all they've talked about is how much leadership.
Got Obo. Now they got Brown.
Yes.
They got Baker. They got Stephen Parker. Even Jordan Thomas. I mean, they've got so many guys. I mean, because they were missing Tapper and Stryker, and they lost Darlington on the offensive side. And I mean, there were so many guys, captains, Trevor Knight. I mean, that they didn't have. So
yeah, they're all back. So, and they all came back with playing experience too.
It's really not strange, but I thought it was interesting as I was going over the photos today, and it's like Lincoln Riley, like he's skinny. He got real skinny last year, and now he's kind of back to being jacked again. Like he looks like he's been lifting a lot.
I saw him and Amani Bledsoe walking out of the gym the other day together.
Like the Everest gym?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just making a bad steroid joke.
Oh, I got you.
Oh, my God.
No word on that either, by the way. I would assume as we get closer, you know how the NCAA works in regards to Monty Bledsoe.
I said the name. He was out there today, I take it.
No, he's out. Yeah, I was watching. I was with him. He's been out there the whole time. I mean, he's been through summer workouts. Yes. He's been a part of the team. I mean, he's just suspended for the first 4 games. So
that will be interesting. I think that's probably something that you check back on when, week before the first game if you don't hear anything.
Yeah.
That will be interesting to see what if he gets any type of information back.
I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those things. I don't want to keep bugging Lincoln about it. I asked him at Big 12 Media Days about it, and he said, as of now, it's a 4-game suspension. So I don't want to keep harping, and at least 2 weeks later, but I don't know. It might be worth asking Friday or Saturday during Big 12 media. I don't want to ask it again, but
yeah, the good news is we do get to talk to these guys here just, I guess, in 48 hours because we'll have a lot of coverage on Saturday from the official, I guess, quote-unquote, local media today.
I'm always torn. I was thinking about this today. Do I really want to go to Autograph Day and take the pictures? And I just... There are a lot of cute kids, like little cute kids, and it kind of makes your heart melt. But at the same time, you can tell the kids who have been dragged there by their uncle who just wants to get his helmet signed.
Or by their dad who just wants to be around the players.
I prefer to think of loser uncle. I don't like it when kids have loser dads. That's sad.
Well, there are a lot of kids that have loser dads.
I know, but it's sad. I don't want to think about that.
Yeah.
Tough break, Laney.
So yeah, I don't. I
think I'll probably go just because it's a good video.
It's a
opportunity.
It is a historical moment yet again. Every first, there's all these firsts for Lincoln Riley. It will be his first, like see his autograph line and how little kids react to him being I'm sure little kids are going to be like, "Where's Bob Stoops?"
Yeah, or there will be a lot.
Will
of
a little kid start crying because
Bob's
expected
not there.
Bob Stoops? Yeah.
They should put a little cardboard cutout of Bob just so people will think it's him. that it's going to be interesting. I'd love to hear like what the one question that Lincoln because I bet there's a bunch of old people too that will just have completely.
It's going to be like
ridiculous comments.
I'm sure there are going to be some.
There'll be a grandpa. Oh, you're not Bob.
There'll be some Hoosiers.
No shit.
There're going to be some Hoosiers barbershop type questions.
There will be a bunch of questions that he's been asked or that have come up every stop that he's gone.
Can you imagine if somebody's there with their little child and they're like, "Are you ever going to get rid of Mike Stoops?"
Oh, I bet there are sometimes. I bet there are some people that say stuff like that.
Why does Tim Kish still have a job here?
But you know what Lincoln should say? You can ask him. He's 4 coaches down. There's a lot of people that would that.
Well, they put Bob on the other side though. They would put Bob on the other side and then the assistants on the other side. So like Bob has his own line.
Yeah.
But I wonder how big the Lincoln line will be this year. I mean, will it come anywhere close to what Bob's lines have been like?
I would say that it will, just because there's going to be I think that there will be a lot of people.
Because you can't put the quarterbacks and Bob in the same line.
Yeah, they've been on opposite sides. Bob has been over with the defensive guys now that you say that.
Because they do it under the stadium now.
It will be interesting. I guess that we'll have to just wait and see. I think that it'll probably be a pretty good turnout as it usually is for this thing. And I dog on it, I bag on it, but I remember going as a kid, so.
You get to go and be a jerk to Boomer and Sooner.
Yeah,
when they try and give you a high five.
We don't do that around here.
I need to get that on video.
We don't.
Because you should see his face, Josh. Like he's so uncomfortable when Boomer and Sooner try and give him a high five.
I'm a top dog, ride or die.
He tries to be really rude, but he knows it's the ultimate bastard thing to do is to say horrible things to Boomer and Sooner. So he's trying to control himself a little bit.
I ride with Top Dog.
He did say that to him right to their faces last year.
Do you think the 2 kids in there even know who the hell Top Dog is?
If they're mascots, I would hope that they would.
Real people know who Top Dog is.
I mean, those suits stink so bad. I have the utmost respect. And you know what? I will give you a high five, Boomer or Sooner, just because you are going. And Eddie, it was so hot today. Like they are living in the pit of hell, walking around in those mascot suits.
I kind of think that's a decision that you make when you want to be a mascot.
When you decide to major,
you did that to
studies.
yourself. I'm not going to feel sorry for you.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Eddie can make me look like the decent human being. He's the only person that can do that.
Good cop, bad cop.
Okay, let's finish off with a flurry. Josh, recruiting news. What can you tell us about the latest, and maybe just a little recap of what we've been through here in the last week?
Sure. I mean, obviously, coming off the barbecue, picked up the 3 commitments. Jace McClellan in the class of 2020, one of not just Texas's best running backs, but one of the better young backs in the country.
Some say regardless of class, they think he's the. I've seen people say regardless of class, I think he's the best running back in Texas.
I don't. I'd have to sit there and go through 2019 a little bit.
I mean, I'm sure it's the knuckle draggers of Texas high school football.
Yeah, but
I
don't. I mean, there's not like that obvious guy that you're like, oh, he's clearly better than every. So I'd have to look through that a little bit and think on it. But I mean, he's very good. Helped. Oh God, let's try it. Aledo. Oh God, I'm so gun shy now. To a state championship last year. I mean, it was a big part of their playoff run. So, and crazy enough, he and his teammate, 2019 corner Jeffrey Carter, who was the first commitment of the barbecue, was actually the first guy ever from that program to commit to Oklahoma. So, or at least would be the first to ever sign. There's no history of OU having a player from that program through the year. So I think that's kind of crazy that that it never happened, and then one day they get 2. And then obviously in 2018, the huge one, the guy we talked about a lot in the last podcast, Jalen Redmond. I mean, just a huge need for Oklahoma, an elite pass rusher. The kind of guy, kind of like Ron Tatum or a Bray Walker. When your state is producing big guys up front, you have to get them. There's not enough of those guys in Oklahoma, so when they do come around, you have to seize on them and take advantage. So I think he's a potential early difference maker. He's a guy that is going to walk on campus, probably be 6'3", 245, 250. I mean, physically, he'll be able to handle it. It's just going to be about how quickly can he mature and pick up all the nuances he'll need to. Excuse me, God. So,
do you think that is he getting ready to have the type of year where, regardless of the fact that he's committed to Oklahoma, that most of the major powers are going to try and take a whack at him?
I think there's a good chance. I mean, if what we saw of Jalen this spring and summer will translate to the field, there's no reason for him not to be a borderline Rivals 100 guy and, one of the top probably 10 defensive ends in the country. I mean, he's that special. It's just, people want it to happen so fast, and Jalen's still figuring things out. I mean, there was no question that the uptake for him this spring was much quicker. He was reacting better. He could see things. It wasn't just see ball, chase ball. Like, he kind of could anticipate what was happening, and he would make the right calls or the right movements. But now you'll kind of see how that, like I said, we'll see what happens. He's under a new defensive coordinator. We'll see how they use him at Midwest City. So there are some questions that have to be answered. But, I mean, from a physical standpoint, he's just tremendously gifted. Now, going into the week to kind of, we kind of finished the team talking about what's going on at linebacker. And in recruiting, I mean, that's kind of the big question right now with Oklahoma possibly getting 2 commitments, maybe by Sunday, with Brian Asamoah, the linebacker from Ohio, and Deshaun White, the linebacker from the Fort Worth area. With White, I think his decision's imminent. I think we'll probably all find out Saturday, if I was going to guess. And I think Oklahoma's in good shape. It's not a done deal. Nothing seems certain, and no one seems to really know. But the impression I get is definitely Oklahoma turned his head in a big way, because we talked about it last week on the podcast, that he was a guy that I said, well, you're hearing A&M and Oklahoma State, and it sounds a lot like A&M, but maybe Oklahoma can kind of come in and surprise him. And I think they just hit it out of the park with his visit. And he kind of fell in love and almost immediately said, hey, I'm going to have a decision before too long. On Monday night, actually announced he did have a decision. He'd come to his choice. So I think now it's just a matter of him announcing it. And I think, like I said, if I was going to label my confidence, I'd say somewhere around 65, 70% for Oklahoma. With Asamoah, it's a little more gray area. He plays his cards very close to the vest. I think it's probably going to be OU or Pitt. Obviously, people are going to ask. Pitt's a lot closer to home. He's got a lot more familiarity there. So that's kind of how they're planning to win out. But I think in either case, I would be surprised if Oklahoma got neither. And I think 2 is completely possible.
When was the last time a guy decided between Oklahoma and Pitt?
It's a proximity thing.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Dan Marino, Tony Dorsett.
It was Dorset. And he changed it to Dorset.
Never heard of him.
Carey, my dad. My dad
Just
still
kidding.
says Dorset. Like, he's very bitter about it for some reason. I don't know why that he will not accept Dorset. He thinks that's just, I don't know why he thinks that's weird.
The computer's making noises because I wanted to do something, which is, we talk about this all the time. Some jackhole gave us a 1-star rating on our podcast page.
Well, he's a
Sooner
bitch.
Scoop podcast page. Could have been a Texas fan. But I wanted to read some of the ratings, because I know some of you guys haven't ever paid attention to this stuff. Some of them are informative. Some of them are hurtful. I don't want to read all the stuff that's like, super. It's like the last one. Funny, creative, and informative. Love it was the title. Here's one I don't really understand. Good info, not so wholesome fun. Sooners tidbits snuggled in between loads of insults to scattered generalized people groups. What is that even? But he gave us 5 stars.
Thank you for the 5-star, but he must not have liked the hashtag banging for Jesus, who I'm excited to watch play tonight. I'm so excited.
Just not talk about that anymore.
He
gets a whole half, doesn't he?
Hey, if he scores a touchdown, I'm BFJN on Twitter. You guys need to retweet it. It will be a big deal. Let's make this like Natty's for Patty.
Scosting, I don't appreciate you and your review, less Carey, and hearing about his high school baseball stories and more Josh.
We didn't have any high school baseball
stories? Maybe he's confusing this with my radio show. I don't know. Oh, shoot is the title of this 5-star review. I'm going to blank on his name. I think we do that a lot.
Yeah, that's me. Like, that's almost certainly me, because that's exactly what I say is I just can't remember.
5 stars isn't justice. I like that. A cast of characters. Eddie, personal favorite, with an in-depth knowledge of team and recruiting news. Josh keeps it real with recruiting news. Carey, more so team news. And even the old editions are worth a listen. I promise you'll learn something new with each one. Only listen if you're ready for the truth. Other Sooner media outlets simply pale in comparison. Insightful national college football outlook tidbits, too. My future children will listen to each podcast.
Wow.
That's from Beer 91.
That was me dropping the mic.
There you go.
Done.
So if you enjoy the podcast, go to iTunes, give us a rating. We could use some ratings on Stitcher. If you're a Stitcher user, you might go and check that out as well. But yeah, we certainly appreciate all you guys. There's Pizza Booty. There's Joe Main Man Mixon. See a lot of board names on here that I recognize. And go over to Sooner Scoop, subscribe. Never a better time. We are killing it right now. Lots of content. Lots of camp coverage. Just had our first media access. We'll have media day on Saturday. So we're just going to have more and more and more to come. Of course, Josh always killing it with the recruiting coverage. Eddie with the Scoop HD. So go subscribe to the website. Email Josh, too. Josh@Soonerscoop.com. We might be able to give you a little special offer if you're interested in signing up for our website. So thanks, guys. We'll go ahead and cut it off here. But, Josh, appreciate you being on the show as always. Eddie, you've got a lot of work to do, I know, but maybe try and take a nap at some point. You can sleep whenever you want tomorrow. It doesn't matter.
Cubs just gave up 4 in the first.
Oh, God, you better get home. Road rage is setting in.
It's not good.
So I am Carey Murdoch, and we appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com.